Hello everybody, this is Robert from Hot Biotech Stocks. If you are trading biotech stocks or if you are considering to trade biotech stocks, you want to know some basics about drug development so that you know that the companies you're investing at, where they are with the drug development and what they are doing. I have 20 years of drug development experience, but will be a crash course on drug discovery. So let's get started. So these are the phases of the drug development, and I'm gonna go through each of them in the following slides. Of course, starts with preclinical, where with using lab models and animal studies, they study a new compound that they have discovered, and then they go to phase 1, which is first in human study. It usually is done in healthy volunteers, which means healthy college students. And after that, they go to patients, which is called phase 2. This is a small study with the people who have the disease, who are actually the patients. And after doing a couple of phase 2 studies, and then the companies are ready to do the phase 3 studies, which is called the pivotal study. This is a study that the FDA requires, and after the approval, they can do phase 4 studies, which is basically they're expanding the indication after they launch the product. So I'm going to explain all of this in the following slides. So this is going to be a slide about the preclinical to phase 1. And drug discovery happens in the lab models, and the scientists know about the biological pathways, the enzymes that are involved, the receptors that are involved, and how the things work. And then using computer modeling to see whether they can stop the enzyme or block the receptor or do this and that in order to stop the symptoms of a disease. They use the computers, they design a compound, and they use computer models, see if it works or not, and if they think they have the compound, then they use cell cultures. For example, if it's a liver disease or a brain disease, they have cell cultures from liver and the brain. They test it on those, and they have models to figure out whether the compound is effective or not. And after the cell cultures, then they're ready to go to animals. And they have specific animals with high, for example, with high blood pressure or with cancer. And they give this compound to animals and see if it works or not. And after that, studies that are ready to go to humans. And I know some of you, like me, are animal lovers. I have had 4 dogs actually. But the animal studies are necessary. Unfortunately, it is first of all required by FDA, so you have to do animal studies. And you want to know if a drug is safe or not in animals. I mean, you don't want, if your sister or your mother was sick, you don't want to give a drug to a sister or mother for the first time, not knowing if it's safe or not. So we have to unfortunately sacrifice some animals, so in order to save the humans. So that's why animal studies are required. So when they do the animal studies, and then the companies are ready to go to phase 1 studies. This is called basically first in human studies. And the aim of phase 1 is just look at safety. And we are not looking still at efficacy. Early development and what FDA wants is always about safety. You want to have safe drugs first, then efficacious drug. So using animal studies and phase 1 studies to find the right dose, the companies are ready to get along and move ahead with the development. After you've done phase 1 in healthy volunteers and you know what doses are effective, then the company is ready to take the drug to patients who have that disease. And it's called phase 2 studies. And they have more patients than phase 2 studies. And what companies do here usually is that they do several phase 2 studies and to figure out if the drug is effective in different diseases. And that's very common, that they look at different patients populations and do several phase 2 studies to find out if the drug is safe and effective. And what happens in this phase 2 studies, you also get serious side effects and adverse events, and you pick up them in phase 2 studies, and if they see a serious side effect, they just shut down the project and they stop the development and don't move ahead. So the safety signals in the phase 1, phase 2 studies are pivotal and very important whether they're going to continue with the compound or not. And I can figure out the cost of the development increases as the number of studies goes up and the number of patients goes up. And basically, I'm giving a general numbers. I mean, usually phase 1 are 20 to 40 patients. Phase 2 is 40 to 100, and phase 3, depending on indication or how many patients are out there. It could be between 100 to 4,000 patients. For example, blood pressure drugs and allergy drugs, they have a huge number of patients. And this is not a clear cut. I mean, sometimes companies do phase 1/2 studies, sometimes they do phase 2/3 studies. The way it works that is that in the protocol, they say, in the clinical study protocol, they say we're gonna dose, for example, if it's a phase 2/3 study, we're gonna dose 40 patients. If that many patients respond, we're gonna recruit 100 more and call it a phase 3 study. So they can do a combination of phase 1, phase 2, and all of that. So it's not a clear cut. And I find this nice image here about the timelines that takes for drug development. And this, if you add it up, it takes a minimum of 10 years. Drug development is a long process. It's a very costly process. So if you have companies that are in a phase 1, phase 2 area, you know there's another 5-7 years until that drug can come to the market. So be patient, and it's a very long and tedious project. And when it comes to closing and coming to the end of the drug development, then you come to the phase 3 studies, which are the pivotal studies. These are the studies that FDA uses to evaluate whether the drug is safe and effective, and they usually want 2 phase 3 studies, so one is not enough. So on top of all the phase 1s and phase 2s and 1 phase 3, FDA will ask for the second phase 3 studies. And it does happen, and if you look at bullet point number 3, it does happen that you have a successful the first phase 3 study, but the second one fails. This is, of course, very frustrating. It does happen, and that's why the drug development is costly and takes a lot of time. And what happens is that company has to repeat the second phase 3 studies, or just maybe totally shut down the study depending how bad it is. So it's a risk. Drug development is not easy. But for the companies who go to orphan indications, these are the diseases that very few people have. It's called low prevalence. For these studies, a phase 2 or 1 phase 3 could work as a pivotal study because there are so few patients out there, and it's so hard to find them. So if they cut you a slack in order to help these patients, so maybe if 1 phase 2 and 1 phase 3 will be enough. And the way they do that, companies do that, is that they talk to FDA, they get agreement, and then they decide what to do. As a company, you can just decide to call it orphan indication and do 1 phase 2 study. Of course, you have to always talk to FDA and get their agreement. This is a slide that I've shown in my other educational videos, is the probability of success for studies or for a drug. I mean, have a successful phase 1, you have 63% chance of a successful phase 2, but look at here, even if you have successful phase 2, there's only a 30% chance you will have a successful phase 3. So there's 70% risk of failure, which is huge. And again, here, as I told before, you can have 1 successful phase 3 and second one fails. So this is even worse. And even though you have a successful phase 3, chance of the data looking good and you can submit an NDA or BLA to FDA is only 60% around. And after you submit your NDA, you have 80% chance of success to get your product approved by FDA. So overall, if a compound has a positive phase 1, the chances to get to approval is only almost 10%. So it's like 90% risk of failure. Keep this in mind if you're investing in companies who have successful phase 1, phase 2 studies. Remember that chance of success for that compound is around 10-15%. And that's why big pharma companies are losing billions and billions in drug development and research, because 90% of the compounds or the drugs are working on fails. That's why they have a huge price tag on the drugs in order to recoup all the cost. I'm going to tie it to biotech stocks. This is my last stock. What impacts a biotech stock is cash position and risk for secondary offering. I'm going to try to put a link here about my second video when you talk in detail about secondary offering, so you know what that is. Now, of course, failure, success of phase 1, phase 2 studies, failure, success or failure of phase 3 studies. Phase 3, if a phase 3 study fails, it has, of course, bigger impact. And even the success or failure of a competitor drugs. I mean, if a competition, you have a very strong competition, and their study fails, it's good for you. Your company's stock goes up, or the vice versa. If the competition has a good phase 3 study, then will take a piece of the pie, and that's bad news for your company. Again, you submit your NDA, and it's not a guarantee that FDA might accept. So acceptance of the NDA is also a major factor, and that's why I highly encourage you, if you invest in biotech stock, follow the company, find out when they will report results, when they will report phase 2 results, when they were expecting the FDA response. So if you're conservative, you can get out of the stock before the news come, or we really know the biology and you know the phase 3 will be successful, you can take the risk and stay in the stock and ride the wave up or down. But I usually recommend to get out before the news comes out. Again, this is my last slide. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Please, I'm going to put a link here for subscribe. Please subscribe. I'm going to put a link here also. Try to my blog, where I'm going to recommend what biotech stocks are hot for the moment. I'm going to give you technical analysis, talk about the company, tell you when to get in and get out to make money. And I'm going to post a few videos every week, and hopefully we can trade together and make some money. And again, thanks for watching, and good trading.